What's up guys, Thomas Alex Norman here. In this video, we're going to be getting into 5 tips on how to make an awesome travel video if you are just starting out, if you're a beginner. This is kind of like a step-by-step guide or a checklist, if you like, to make sure you're on track and make sure you're going to make the awesome travel video that you want to make. Speaking of that, before we get into this, if you could leave a comment below on what would be your dream travel video that you could make, that would be awesome. Also, whilst you're there, hit subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified of these videos when they come out. Okay, let's do this. All right, so key number 1 is to film steady and without panning. These two things work together quite well. There's 2 key mistakes that I see in a lot of beginners travel videos. Number 1 is that their shots are shaky, and number 2, they pan too much. And the worst thing is a combination of both. So a typical travel video you might see, or the typical footage you might have if you come back from a trip without having any filmmaking knowledge, is you want to capture the whole environment. So say you're on this big beach right now, you're going to think, wow, isn't this great? And you're going to capture it like this. And you're going to pan around and try and get everything in one shot panning around. And also you might not do it with that much care. And so you'll kind of pan around like this, and it will kind of end up with this horrible shaky pan that looks completely amateur and home video-like. So you want to completely avoid this. And it sounds obvious and it sounds simple, but every single shot, you really need to be careful. You really need to take your time. You need to have steady hands. You need to line it up, think about the composition a little bit, and that's your shot. The other thing with panning is something that you don't usually see in cinematic videos. Cinematic videos always involve either still shots or shots with camera movement. And camera movement doesn't mean side to side like this in a pan. It means literally moving the camera itself back and forwards, or the camera itself side to side, to get some cinematic movement in each shot. That's slightly more advanced. So if you're really starting out as a basic, as a beginner, make sure you're getting these still shots and maybe add just a tiny bit of movement into them, some purposeful movement, and that's it. So no shake and no pan. You'll thank me later. Okay, key number 2. This, then this, then this. Try and tell a visual story, or a bit more fancy, a micro-narrative. What you don't want to do is confuse your audience and put in random shots that don't really join together or necessarily tell any kind of story. What you do want to do is tell mini stories within your video. So for example, if you're on the beach, you would pick something happening, pick your event, pick your subject, and tell a story about them through your shots, and make sure they link together. So if, for example, you have a friend and they are going into the sea, rather than potentially just one shot of them in the sea and then suddenly you're somewhere else, you would potentially want to get them putting down the beach towel, running along the sand, and then going into the ocean, right? So you're getting 4 shots here in this example where you're following your subject and telling a visual story, connecting different shots together. This kind of thing really will step up the production value of your video, as well as give your audience a compelling narrative to follow along with. All right, key number 3 is try and capture a sensory experience. So you're building up your micro-narrative, you're keeping your shots steady and you're doing it carefully. The next thing is to try and within your shot, capture a sensory experience. And what this means is, how does it feel to be there? How does it smell? How does the light look like? What do things feel like? These kinds of activations of our senses is what can really bring your audience into the video and make them feel like they're there. Sound is a big part of this as well. What do we hear? The way that you can do this, starting out, is really just by trying to feel it yourself. So really try and feel whichever situation you're in. Try and activate your senses a little bit. Try and get into your senses and think about, for example, how does the sun feel on my face right now? What is that feeling? More like, what emotions does that bring up in me? How does it make me feel? And once you kind of get in touch with that, it's really so much easier to actually try and capture it in the first place. And I know that's not like a technical advice and this is literally how you do it, but it's a really useful thing to keep in mind, because once you have that, you'll be able to see that thing, because that really gets in our minds what it feels like to be there, and it's going to make your video so much more emotional and engaging. Key number 4, don't film too much. This is the worst thing that you can do, is to film everything. This sucks, don't do it. You have so much footage, you'll never edit it. Keeping the 3 keys before this in mind, do those things, but don't film too much. Select your shots, think about what's going on, think about maybe in this scene, the 5 or 6 best shots that you can get, and don't get anything more. Okay, if you're in a scene where there's loads of amazing stuff happening, of course, go a bit more crazy, film more stuff, but always keep this in mind. Is what I'm filming right now pointless, or is it really gonna be in the story? Does it help further the story? Or is it a sensory experience? If no, then don't worry about it. Don't film it. You're gonna save yourself a ton of time, and you're gonna end up, if you don't film too much, you're gonna end up with just great shots that will be in your video, and it will be a pleasure to edit. So the 5th and final key, last but definitely not least, is always capture an ending. This is one of the crucial mistakes I always see when people send me their videos, is that people don't think about how they're gonna end their videos. And this kind of sums up a mindset overall that maybe they're not thinking about the edit when they're filming. If you don't capture an ending, or don't capture something that you think could be an ending, it's gonna be very hard to end your video, especially if it's quite a short one. A big mistake I always see is videos just cut off, they just end without any warning, or they'll just kind of, the music and the audio will just fade out and that's it. But the ending needs to be something slightly thought out. I've actually got a video about this completely, that'll be in the description. But if you don't want to go that far, you just need to think about a couple of shots that might look nice at the end. It could be as simple as a time lapse and a sunset, or it could be this kind of capturing an end of the day feeling where people are chilling out and it winds down. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. That was 5 keys on how to make travel videos if you're a beginner. Make sure you download the gear list, which is in the link below. It's a free guide on all the gear that I use and that I would recommend to you. I'll see you very soon, guys. Keep filming. Bye-bye.